Hi, everybody. My name is Kaylin Wade, and hopefully you recognize my name because guess what? We're classmates in SLIS 751. Yay! I'm really excited to be talking to you tonight about civic literacy. I know that this week's main topic is emergent literacy and different facets and issues within that, but Dr. Copeland and I both thought that civic literacy could also fit really well with the rest of what we're talking about. And lucky for me, Dr. Copeland thought that I might be a good person to talk about it. So I'm really excited. Um, I don't know if you remember from our intros at the beginning of the semester, but I am actually a first semester student in SLIS. And if you did remember that, you might be wondering, why should I listen to this girl about anything to do with literacy or libraries? That would be a good question. My background is in history, government, politics, that area. My bachelor's degree is in history and political science, and then I have a previous master's degree in diplomacy from the University of Kentucky. In working with history, politics, government, not only do I enjoy it a lot, and not only am I knowledgeable about it, but I am very passionate about it and about getting people involved. And so, like I said, I'm really excited about this, and it's really good timing. I don't know about when you're listening, but when I'm recording this, tomorrow is election day. So go vote. And then teach people about civics after whenever you get a chance. Any chance you get, teach them about civics. You see there that I have a couple of different email addresses listed. If you have any questions, any comments, anything you want to chat about, don't hesitate to get in touch with me. Like I said, I love to talk about this stuff. So the first thing that I want us to think about is throughout this class with studying literacy, we have looked a lot at how to kind of train informed people, how to create informed people, how to teach people to inform themselves. And so I want to kind of take a different branch of that road and think about the idea of informed citizens. We have discussed all different types of literacy, about financial skills, about social and emotional skills that are part of those literacies, about when people should ask for information, about how people should search for information, and about how we as librarians should recognize that in patrons. But I want to put kind of a twist on it and think about all those same things, but in the frame of citizens instead of just people. So yes, we do definitely want these informed people, but we don't only want that. We want informed citizens. And we want those citizens to not only be informed, but we want them to be able to participate in public life. We want them to be willing to do so, and we want them to actually do so. And so what we're going to be talking about today is, how do we encourage people to be informed citizens? And then how do we encourage them to take that farther to actually participating in public life? So when I say participate in public life, what do I mean? There are all kind of options. Number one option, voting. Go vote every chance you get. Because if you think about our form of government, voting is not just a right. It's not something that we have the right to do. It's something we have a responsibility to do. It's part of our job as citizens of a democracy. Everyone needs to vote. Past that, get in contact with your representatives, your local representatives, state, federal, everybody. You can call them, you can write them letters, you can visit their offices. Yes, they have offices that are open to the public. And they may act like they don't really want to talk to you. You may end up talking to an intern or talking to the office manager. Those messages still get through to the representative, and even if the representative may seem like they don't really want to listen to you, remember that it is their job. It's what they signed up for when they ran for office, and it is what they are there for. So don't forget that. And don't feel like you're bothering them. It's what they're there for, is to listen to you. Other options, attend a town hall meeting. Town hall meetings are actually built to find out what citizens want, to get information from them, to find out how they feel about issues. So take advantage of that. Something that a lot of people don't think about, or they think, oh no, that's not for me. You can run for office. With some exceptions based on different rules and regulations, any of us can run for a public office. We need to take advantage of that. Some people don't like this idea, but peaceful protest is a version of participating, and I emphasize very strongly peaceful protest. Peaceful protest. Civil rights would not be something that is in our law books today if it were not for peaceful protest. Some people may consider it impolite or something that just feels a little inappropriate, but that is not the case. Peaceful protest is a very strong tool. It may not be for everybody, and that's each person's choice. That you get to make your own choices. That's fine, but it is an option. And then lastly, and I think that this one is extremely important, sit down with somebody, have a cup of coffee, and just talk to them about issues that are important to them, issues that are important to you, and make sure that you don't do all the talking. Make sure that you also listen to what they have to say and what's important to them and why it's important to them, because if you do that, you'll have a way better understanding of where their political choices come from. And instead of getting angry at them, you will actually be able to have a conversation and be able to grow together, and it's a very important thing to do. So I encourage that more than anything else on this list, except for voting. Go vote. Okay, so here's a question. Are libraries the right place to talk about civic literacy? So my short answer is yes. Absolutely yes. But it does deserve a longer answer than that. I realize that. A lot of people, they have concerns about talking about civics, about politics in libraries. They have specific reasons for this. They're legitimate reasons. And some are that it's kind of inappropriate. And part of that inappropriate feeling is that it violates the idea that libraries should be a neutral territory. And I disagree with it, but it is a legitimate view to have. Another thing is that, this is complex stuff. It's difficult, and it would be a lot of work to teach people this stuff. And so some librarians don't really want to get into it. Another issue is that some librarians, they don't feel like they know enough about it. They aren't confident in their own knowledge about this specific topic, and so they don't want to get into it. So as you can see, I have responses to all of these. Number one, that the idea that it might be inappropriate, I disagree with this so strongly that it frustrates me. It absolutely is not inappropriate to talk about civics in a library. There's nothing inappropriate about it. This is in my opinion. I hope you agree with me. As a democracy, it's dangerous to think about civics as inappropriate or taboo. A democracy can't work if citizens see participating in government as inappropriate, or if they see learning about participating as inappropriate. And so we have to keep that in mind, that it's not inappropriate to learn about it, so it also can't be inappropriate to teach it. And that is just so important. As to the neutrality issue, something important to remember is that civics does not equal politics. You can teach civics without teaching politics, without getting political. As we get a little bit farther into my presentation here, some of my recommendations will touch on politics, on political issues. But this is not an all or nothing proposition. If you don't want to touch politics, if you're not comfortable with it, that's fine. You can still teach civics. You can teach how government functions, or what are reliable news sources that people can look at. All of these are important, and they can still not violate that idea of the library as a neutral territory. And then as to the issues are too complex or too difficult, or librarians aren't confident in their own knowledge, what's one of the things that we have been talking about so much this semester? It's community partnerships. There are people in your community who this is what they do. They're like me and this is what they're passionate about, and they would love to come to your library and teach people about civics. So take advantage of that. Okay, now that we have established that yes, in fact, libraries are the place to talk about civics, what can libraries do? What can we as librarians or as information professionals do? First of all the options that we already went over on the quote-unquote public participation slide, make sure that people know about those. Make sure they know that they can get in touch with their representatives. Provide that contact information to them, because that may be something that is a little harder to find. So have that there for them to make it easier for them to participate. Something that's really important, voter registration. Whether it is that you have a permanent station in your library where people can register to vote, or if you host a voter registration drive. Any little bit helps, and if we think about it, a lot of our library patrons, especially if you're in an urban area, and library patrons, they come to the library because it's free, a lot of them may be the very people who are kind of neglected when it comes to voter registration. So we could play a really important role in this. And then host civic literacy classes. And like I was talking about earlier, they can address politics, or they can just address basic government functions. And that can be federal, it can be state, it can be local. All of it is important. So any option you pick would be a correct option. There's no wrong answer as far as that. Also, teach them about news, about fact checking, about how to search for bias in news, what are reliable sources. All of these are things that we can teach people, and that would be really helpful for the more people to know. And then another thing you can host is a town hall style meeting. And something that would make it really even more helpful to the community would be to actually involve patrons in choosing the topic of the meeting. This is an idea I've had. Dedicate a space in your library to be kind of an election central, where you provide information about everything that is going to be on an upcoming ballot, about candidates, about issues, about referendums, about amendments, everything that could come up on a ballot in your area. Have there be some information about it there. Have it be, visually attractive so that people actually want to come see it. And then have it be a place where people know that they can get reliable information and unbiased information from their local library, so provide that for them. And the last thing, young people can be kind of a hard audience for this, partly because they're not old enough to vote, so they may feel like they don't have a voice. But that doesn't mean that they should be neglected in the areas of learning about civics and civic literacy and even politics. So, offer some fun programming to attract them. Some of you may have seen me talk about this in our chats in classroom time in our meetups. But my class project, the program that I'm trying to build for our semester-long project, is aimed at civic literacy, but it's kind of funneled through the frame of zine making. So I'm working with the Chattanooga Public Library, and they have a really big, nice makerspace already there in the downtown branch of the library. And part of what they have is a zine making area that's already established. So I thought it would be a really cool idea to use that area that's already there, that infrastructure that's already there, and direct it towards civic literacy for young people. That way there's a fun, creative aspect to it, but also kind of sneaking in under the radar is civic literacy training, where we teach people how to read news sources. What are reliable news sources? What does bias look like? How can you go and research issues? And that this doesn't only apply to issues, it can also apply to candidates. So anyway, I'm really excited about that project, and it is an example of how to offer fun programming for young people that is related to civics and politics. And so I am not going to go through all of these, but these are just some examples of when I mention basic government functions. These are questions that people legitimately have. I know that if you have a background or a basic knowledge about government, some of these may seem a little silly, but remember that they're not. For instance, the one that I have here about what's the difference between Congress, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. I actually had a conversation with somebody recently who I was talking about a certain senator, and they said, wait, I thought that they were a member of Congress. And I said, well, yes, they're both. And as we talked more, the person I was talking to did not have a good grasp of how the Senate and the House of Representatives work together to make Congress as a greater whole. And when it's time for presidential elections, goodness knows that everybody is confused about the Electoral College. So that's always something that people are interested in, especially around a certain time, and that it's good to know about. It's good to know how these things work. Another one is, make sure that people know who their representatives are and what levels those representatives represent. Is it state? Is it federal? Is it local? And, what's the difference? What are their different responsibilities at that point? So, like I said, all of these would be great questions to address that would be non-political questions. These are civics-based questions. And the next slide we're going to look at, some of you may have seen this already or may have seen an earlier version of it. This is a media bias chart that just looks at all of these different media outlets and kind of rates them and places them physically according to their bias. So it's a really useful tool to show people, or even to look at yourself if you're looking at news, where does this news piece fall as far as bias is concerned. So this can be both for your reference and to pass on to patrons. So lastly here, I have a page of resources. iCivics is a really cool thing. It was founded by Sandra Day O'Connor after she retired from the Supreme Court, and it's basically got two different sides to it. One is civics-related games for kids. And there's one where you're the president, and so you have to make all these important decisions. And there's another one where you run your own county. So again, you have to make important decisions. They're on kind of a smaller scale, but it gives you two really different but still really important versions of running government. And then the other side of iCivics is that there's actual curriculum units so that you can teach civics and have kind of a basis outline for teaching that. Both P21 and the Center for Civic Education, those will give you links to other programs and other resources that could be really handy if you're trying to put together a program. And then Ballot Ready is, I've discovered it fairly recently, and it's a really, really handy tool for coming up on an election. What you do is you go to the website, you put in your home address, and it guides you through literally everything that will be on your ballot. It's got federal, it's got state, it's got local, it has candidates, amendments, and referendums, and it gives you the option to look at a specific candidate and what they stand for, and then you can look at the candidate on the other side of the race and look at what they stand for. On referendums, it actually goes through and tells you this is what a yes vote would mean and this is what a no vote would mean. And so this is just so handy for preparing to go vote. So yeah, this is everything I have. I hope that you have enjoyed listening to me, or at least found it useful, if not enjoyed it. I have enjoyed talking to all of you. Like I said, if anybody has any questions, comments, anything that you would like to get in contact with me, please feel free. And again, thanks so much to all of you for listening, and thanks Dr. Copeland for letting me do this. Y'all have a good night.